getting pretty warm in here, just like the discussions for the brand new Metallica album. Yeah, that transition was so smooth, I should just, stop what I'm doing forever and just make money off of that. That was great. So it's been a long time since we've had a brand new studio record from Metallica. It's been 8 years, if you don't count Lulu, which most of us don't. Most of us consider that a collaboration album with Lou Reed, which is exactly what it is. So we've been questioning now for the past couple of months what this record could potentially sound like. And there's a couple of pieces of information that we got today that's kind of interesting. We got them directly from Lars Ulrich, stating that it's not going to sound kind of like Death Magnetic. That in Death Magnetic's recording sessions, whenever they were with Rick Rubin, he wanted them to look a little bit reflectively. Kind of look at the past and actually use that as motivation for what their music was going to become. And Death Magnetic is sort of a representation of that. It was a more, modern 2008 take on what some of Metallica's work from that era really kind of exhibited. Many people stated that this is the album that would easily bridge the gap between And Justice for All and the Black Album, and I would tend to agree with them. However, with this brand new album that's going to be coming potentially this year, in fact, there's the potential for a fall 2016 release of this album, says this article. This is one where they are not looking that same way. They're instead looking more so toward the present. It's a little bit more frenetic than the last record was, Death Magnetic, and it's one that's a little bit more diverse, which I'm sure already has red flags going off everywhere in the heads and minds of many individuals. I kind of like this idea, though, because if there's one thing that Death Magnetic doesn't have for me, for an old school fan, for somebody who was jamming out to the first 4 albums before, Death Magnetic was even a thought, who was jamming out to those same albums along with Load and Reload and their 90s material prior to the release of Saint Anger. Death Magnetic definitely had that old school vibe to it, but it was also one that felt like it was missing a little bit of something, and looking back and listening to it in the years since its release has sort of exposed this idea to me. It's one of those sort of records that I think will always go down as a little bit more underappreciated because of after Load and Reload and Saint Anger, it's seen as too little too late. But this is a disc that's not that bad, but it seemed like it needed a little bit further punch in order to really solidify it as something truly, unique. And this album sounds like that's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for a little bit of uniquity. They're aiming for a little bit of diversity. But, and this is a key but, and a big but at that, Sir Mix-a-Lot would be proud. The Lords of Summer. You remember the Lords of Summer, don't you? The song from about 2 years ago that was seen as representative as to where their headspace is right now as far as Metallica is concerned. That feeling has not changed. So, what you can kind of gather from that is that if you enjoyed Lords of Summer, then there's a very good chance that you're going to end up enjoying this album. You're going to kind of dig some of the different sonic highways that the band opts to drift down in their Metallica vehicle whenever we get this album, whether it be later this year or at a later date than that. But they're mixing right now, so sooner is probably more apt. Expect an album release announcement soon. If you weren't a big fan of the Lords of Summer, if you felt the Lords of Summer was drifting a little bit too much away from the whole thrash metal root idea and a little bit closer toward like a classic rock or just a, rock influence, then chances are this may be a bit of a struggle of an album for you. And they just kind of came out and said it. And I have to give them a lot of respect for that. Personally speaking, I felt that Lords of Summer was an okay track. I'm kind of right in the middle. In fact, I recently went back and re-listened to the song and found it to be maybe a little bit more enjoyable than the first time that I had listened to it. I thought that it was solid enough to stand on its own. It is different, but Metallica is a band that I think at this stance is not completely all on board the thrash metal train as far as writing new music is concerned. If you even take a look at Garage Incorporated whenever it comes to some of their influences or some of the covers that they choose, folks like Bob Seger, either that or folks such as, I'm trying to think of the artist that did Astronomy, Blue Oyster Cult, I believe it was. I can't believe I'm muckling that. They're definitely not representative of thrash metal. They're more, or really heavy metal in general. They're more representative of classic rock, and they definitely have a fan base for these groups. So this is going to be interesting. I want to know what you guys think. If the new Metallica album is not a thrash metal album, if the new Metallica album is a little bit more of just a diverse heavy metal record, and we'll even go there. You know, I'm not even going to say it's going to have that earmark of hard rock or classic rock. We'll just say that it's just a standard heavy metal record, where it's just hard and heavy, but it has a lot of collective influence. Is that going to affect whether or not you want to listen to it? Is that going to affect whether or not you're going to think that this is good? Does Metallica have to be thrash metal in order for this record to be okay? That's what I want to know. That's what you're going to tell me in the comments below. I'm coverkillernation, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon, considering I told you guys the next thing would be the Swans review. That's true now, faux show, considering I recorded this video after that one. This one's shorter, so politics, it's fun. So stay tuned for that. Take care.